Hello again, everyone. For my regular viewers, you'll know that every week I go to a different city and talk about the big four sports teams in that city. So that's looking at the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL. I will be doing that this week. I'll be going to Houston, as I mentioned in my last video from the week previous to this one. So I will be starting that next week. Don't worry, I will be checking on Houston sports teams for my regular viewers. I can't thank you enough for watching and cluing in. For those of you that might be watching this video for the first time, you can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614 and can subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you again for all the support. What I'm going to be talking about in this video today is the NHL and the playoff picture and teams that are tanking, for lack of a better word, in order to try to get McKinnon in this upcoming draft. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to look at the top 10 teams in the league right now based on their points and kind of the remainder of their seasons and where they might end up. And then I'm going to look at the bottom 5 teams in the league and kind of how their season's going to wrap up and their chances of getting the #1 overall pick kind of thing. So best team in the league right now based on points is the New York Rangers. Of the 10 teams that are in the top 10, the Rangers have the most remaining games in the season. They have 11 games left in the season, and they are playing nobody that is another top 10 team in their last 11 games. They have 2 games against Ottawa, which I think is going to be a sneaker into the playoff picture, which is great. That'll be a good competition for Ottawa if they do make the playoffs to play a very strong team like the Rangers for sure. The Rangers also have 2 games against Washington and 2 games against the New Jersey Devils, so those are easy games there. They play the Blue Jackets once, they play the Wild, which is a team that could squeak into the playoffs. The Kings obviously are a nice mid-range team, same with the Bruins, and the Winnipeg Jets are kind of the teams that they are finishing off the season with. But like I said, based on points, they don't play any other top 10 team, so I think the President's Trophy is theirs to lose. They have the most remaining games of the top 10 teams, and they don't play another top 10 team in the last games of their season. So I think the President's Trophy should be easy for them to grab for sure. Number 2 team, representing Canada well, the Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens. They have 9 games left in the season, and of those 9 games, they play the Panthers twice. They're playing the Leafs once, so that should be an easy win for them there for sure. They're playing Washington, they're playing the Devils, but they do have a game against the Predators, a game against the Lightning, and a game against the Red Wings. So they only have 9 games left, but 3 of them are against top 10 teams, so we'll kind of see where they'll finish off. I think those are the Rangers and the Canadiens are going to be fighting with each other for the top seed in the East kind of thing, and who might win the President's Trophy, with the Rangers having a couple more games left on their season than the Canadiens, and a lot easier schedule. I think the Rangers are going to get the #1 seed, and the Canadiens will probably drop into the #2 seed kind of thing in the East. Looking at the Anaheim Ducks, who are the best team in the Western Conference, so if the President's Trophy was to go to a Western Conference team, right now it would be the Ducks, but the Ducks only have 8 games remaining in their season, so of the top 10 teams, they have the fewest remaining games, and they also have a very easy schedule as well. They play the Islanders 1 game. That's the only game they have in their remaining 8 against top 10 teams, so we could see them maybe make a jump, but again, it's going to be hard for them to get the President's Trophy with having 3 fewer games than the Rangers left in their season for sure. Next, the 4th team right now in the league, Tampa Bay Lightning. They have 9 games left on their season. 2 of those are against the Panthers, so that should be 2 easy wins there. They got a game against Toronto. I don't like harping on Toronto being Canadian, but you know the Leafs are having a horrible season, and I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for Leafs fans and stuff, but the Leafs are having a horrible season, and I think it's known that they're going to tank to try to get McKinnon, but I'll get to the Leafs when I get to my 5 worst teams. I won't dwell on them too much right now. But looking at the Lightning, 4th in the league right now, 9 games left, 2 against the Panthers. They do have a game against the Nashville, 1 against the Red Wings, and 1 against the Canadiens, so those are 3 of their 9 games are against top 10 teams, so we'll see how they finish off their season. 5th in the league right now, the St. Louis Blues, who are my pick to win the Stanley Cup this year. I think the Blues are finally going to reach the Stanley Cup. That's who I'm thinking is going to go all the way for the Stanley Cup. They got 9 games left this season. 2 of them are against Chicago, which are going to be a tough component there. 1 is against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So of their 9, 3 are against top 10 teams as well, kind of thing. So the Blues and the Lightning kind of have a very similar difficulty level when it comes to finishing off the season in the schedule. The sixth team is the Predators, which are the second team that are coming out of the Western Conference in the top 10. 7 of the top 10 teams are Eastern Conference teams. Only 3 are from the Western Conference, with the first one being the Ducks, 3rd overall. Now the Blackhawks are 7th overall. Predators. Predators are 6th overall. Blackhawks are 7th. So looking at Predators first, they got 9 games left. 2 games against Dallas. They are only 2 games against top 10 opponents, or against Montreal and Tampa Bay. And then with the Blackhawks, they have 10 games left. 2 of them are against St. Louis, but outside of those 2 games, all their other games are against opponents that are out of the top 10 in the league. So the Blackhawks have the most games left out of the top 3 Western Conference teams, and arguably the easier schedule, I would say. Outside of the 2 games against the Blues, their other games are definitely winnable games for sure. So the Blackhawks might be the number 1 seed in the West. Right now it is the Ducks and then the Predators, but the Blackhawks have that extra games on the other 2 teams, so they might be able to squeak in and get the number 1 seed in the West. We'll see what happens there. 8th overall, the New York Islanders, which is a bit of a shock. I don't think anybody saw the Islanders being a successful team. At least not this year. You know, they've been struggling for a lot of years, so they've got a lot of high draft picks, and now it's starting to come around for them. You know, same with the Predators as well. You know, I don't think anybody saw Predators, where'd they come from kind of thing is what I was thinking when I saw them, where they were sitting and how they were playing this year, and my same thoughts are coming with the Islanders. The Islanders, like I said, 8th overall in the league right now, have 9 games left on their season. 1 against the Ducks, 1 against the Red Wings, and 1 against the Penguins. Those are 3 of the 9 that are against top 10 teams, so a very similar schedule kind of thing to the Lightning and the Blues, with difficulty level against their opponents kind of thing, looking at that. 9th overall is the Penguins, so they're still a competitive team, the Penguins. You know, recent cups, and, you know, they got Crosby and Malkin and all that stuff, and why are they 9th overall? I still think they got the playoff experience, that even if they were in the East, even if they were a 5th or 6th seed or something ridiculous like that, I still think even if they're playing the second or the 3rd overall seed kind of thing, they're going to be a tough opponent, and we'll see what happens with that for sure. They have 10 games left on their season. 1 against the Blues, 1 against the Islanders, 2 against the Flyers, obviously. But outside of the Islanders and the St. Louis Blues, their other 8 games are against non-top 10 opponents, so they have a fairly easy schedule to finish off their season. So hopefully they can jump up the standings a little bit and maybe get into a top 4 seed for sure. 10th overall, the Red Wings. Of the top 10 teams, like I said, the Rangers have 11 games left. The Red Wings also have 11 games left. But once against the Lightning, 1 against the Islanders, 1 against the Canadiens. They do have 2 against Carolina. They're playing Ottawa as well, which is, you know, a bubble team for sure. They're playing the Sharks, the Bruins, the Wild. So they have competitive teams to face, even though they do have more games left on their season than other teams in the top 10. Like, they're only playing 3 top 10 teams, so 8 of their last 11 games are against non-top 10 teams, but they're against, you know, bubble playoff opponents and competitive opponents. So the Red Wings, I think, will make the playoffs, but I think they'll probably be somewhere in the 6th, 7th, or 8th seed. I don't think they're going to get a top 4 seed in the East for sure, especially with the kind of season that the Rangers and the Canadiens and the Lightning and Blues are having. I think getting into a top 4 seed is going to be tough to do, especially for teams like the Islanders and the Penguins and the Red Wings. I think the Islanders are just going to be happy to make the playoffs. I think the Red Wings and the Penguins are going to make the playoffs as well, but I don't think they're as in dire need of having home ice advantage because they got a lot of playoff experience on their rosters. I think the Islanders would benefit more from having a home ice advantage because they don't have a lot of players on their roster that have a lot of playoff experience. So I think if the Islanders could find a way to get to the top 4 seed and get some more home ice advantage, I think that would help them for sure. It would also be really cool, not that I would want the Islanders to drop, but let's say, for example, the Rangers finished first in the East, the Islanders finished 8th. That would just be a really cool first round playoff battle right there with the two New York teams. So that's one scenario that could happen, which would just kind of be a cool little rivalry to have. They always talk about in baseball, you know, when the Yankees play the Mets, it's like the Subway Series. Well, it would kind of be similar if the Islanders were to play the Rangers. So that's just a scenario that could happen, and I know that would get a lot of talk from analysts and hockey fans alike to have 2 New York teams face off against each other in the first round. Flip side, now I'm going to talk about the 5 worst teams in the league. Number 1, obviously, Buffalo Sabres. I know my buddy Josh Doan, if you're watching this, I feel for you, buddy. Sorry your team sucks this year. They're worse than the league. They have 9 games left on their season, and arguably a very easy schedule as well. 2 of their games are against the Coyotes. They're playing the Leafs once. They're playing the Hurricanes once. The teams I'm going to mention here are the other bottom 5 teams in the league kind of thing that they're playing. And then their other opponents are going to be tougher opponents. Like they do play the Blackhawks, the Islanders, the Penguins. They do play them as well. But I don't see them having the kind of season that is going to turn it around, and they're not going to have the first overall pick kind of thing. I do think that's where they're headed. The Coyotes being the second worst team in the league, they're playing, like I said, the Sabres and Coyotes play each other twice. So those are just going to be horrible games to watch, unfortunately, for the fans out there, because you got the 2 teams that are fighting for the number 1 overall pick kind of thing to get McKinnon. The Coyotes have a more difficult schedule left on their season. They're playing the Sharks twice, which are a very competitive team. Of course, any team outside of the Sabres for the Coyotes, any team is going to be better than them. So they do arguably have a more tougher schedule to get the first overall pick. The Sabres would kind of make it really obvious that they're trying to get the first overall pick when they're playing 4 of their last 9 games against really poor opponents, kind of thing. So we'll see what happens with that. It would be nice, just as a Canadian, to have a Canadian team get the first overall pick. The Edmonton Oilers obviously have had a lot of high draft picks, and now they're hopefully finally going to turn around into something. But the Oilers are kind of in the market to get that first overall pick as well. They got 9 games left on their season, and they're playing the Avalanche twice. They got to play the Kings twice. They're playing the Sharks. They're playing the Flames. They're playing the Ducks. So they got a lot of bubble teams to make the playoffs, and they got some tough opponents. So based on their remaining schedule, the Oilers have the more tough opponents, so it wouldn't be quite as obvious if they were tanking to try to get the first round pick, because they have the most difficult schedule of the remaining teams. The Leafs have 8 games left, so they have the fewest remaining games of the bottom 5 teams. They only play the Sabres once, and all of their other opponents are playoff bound or middle of the league kind of teams. They got to play the Canadiens once. They're playing the Bruins. They're playing the Senators twice. So that'll be nice for the Senators, I'm sure, as well. I'm looking to try to get into that playoff spot, playing the Leafs. Those are 2 easy wins, I would say, for the Senators. But Maple Leafs, I think, they're going to get a top 3 pick, I would say, regardless. Whether or not they get McKinnon, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. 5th worst team in the league, Carolina Hurricanes. They have 10 games left, so they have an extra game on top of everybody else. They only play the Sabres once, and all of their other games are against competitive teams. They got to play the Red Wings twice. They got to play the Flyers twice. They got to play Pittsburgh once, obviously. And then all the other teams are mid-league teams. So we'll see what happens with the Hurricanes. I don't think they're going to drop so far down to try to get the first overall pick. And really, outside of the Leafs, Oilers, Coyotes, and Sabres, I think those are the 4 teams that are kind of hoping to get the first overall pick. I don't think the Hurricanes are at the let's tank and try to get McKinnon on our roster kind of thing. I don't think that's where the Hurricanes are at. I don't think they're that far removed from playoff and that far removed from being a successful team to, everybody wants, I'm sure, a first overall pick, but I don't think they're kind of at that. We need to rebuild and get the first overall pick, and we'll build a roster around McKinnon. I do think the other 4 teams need something shaken up, need something to give a jump start to the roster, see what can happen. Hopefully, like I said, as a Canadian, I would like to see the Oilers get McKinnon. I would feel bad for McKinnon if he went to Toronto. I know a lot of young players. Toronto is a tough market to play in, for sure. The media is all over you, and I understand that. But it's also hard on families. When you're drafted into the NHL as an 18-year-old kid, your parents are affected, your siblings are affected. When you're 28 and now you've been in the league for a while and you got your own family and your own kind of thing, you're established, you're not affecting everybody in your life. You still are, but your parents aren't getting called because you're out with an ankle injury, so everybody's trying to talk to you. But no, we know McKinnon's dad works for this company. We'll call that company and talk to his dad all the time. So I know families will get harassed from Toronto media and all that kind of stuff. So I feel McKinnon would be great in Edmonton. Go to a Canadian team, play for a Canadian team, but you're going to a market that isn't so hockey heavy and media is going to just destroy you. I think it would allow him to develop into a great player for the NHL. So those are my thoughts on what I think will happen with the playoffs. I think the Rangers will get the President's Trophy. I think the Blues are going to win the Stanley Cup overall, and I think the Oilers will get the first overall pick and draft McKinnon. Those are my three sum up points right there. Thank you again to everyone who watches. Just to remind you, you can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614, and you can check out my Facebook page, Graham Sports Gab. And for all those regular viewers, this week I will be heading off to Houston. This week will be Houston Week, and I will be starting my Houston Week talks off tomorrow with a look in on the Houston Astros of the MLB. Thank you again all for watching. Bye-bye.